activist and co-leader of Yimby Tampa. Here he is.
Good morning, everybody. I like to joke sometimes that I think there's probably only about 150 people who ever speak at City Council in a given year, and about half those people are here today. So I'm honored to have all of you here. In a city of 350,000, that's interesting. So I'm going to start off not by introducing myself, but introducing the problem. Then I'll introduce myself and our group and talk about accessory dwelling units. So I want to say something that I hope is not too controversial. We are in an absolute dumpster fire of an affordable housing crisis right now. We have not really done anything substantive to address the long-term causes of this, and we need to do that very quickly. And they have to be big things. If you're a renter in the city of Tampa today, on average, you're spending 42% of your income on housing. The median worker spends 25% of their income on transportation. The result of that is that the typical renter in the city of Tampa should expect to spend 70% of their income on the price of participation. Just having the ability to have a shower at home and a commute to work requires them to work 20 minutes of every hour that they are working just to do that. 70 cents of every dollar. That does not include taxes, food, childcare, savings, 70%. If you are a homeowner, you may know that interest rates, or that insurance rates are going through the roof, literally. The cost of homes are still going up despite interest rates going up, despite a looming recession. Estimates say at best it's going to be level this year, but I'm not even seeing that when I go on Zillow. The result of this is that we have a situation where we have to ask how many thousands of our neighbors have been displaced in the last couple of years. How many people are being displaced every day in our community because of housing? How many kids are being displaced from their schools? How many families, extended families, are being permanently separated because of economic segregation caused by our housing policies today? If you're on fixed income, there's a good chance that you're concerned about whether you can even keep your home. There are many people who are older now who can't afford to maintain their home. So they will look at downsizing, and where can they go? If you tried to look at that, if you looked into downsizing, you probably know there's not many good options. You're not really going to save any money by selling your home and buying another home right now. Even if it's smaller, you're just going to get less for your money. We're in a situation where many of our neighbors in Tampa cannot afford to live here, and they cannot afford to leave. That puts them in what we call a poverty trap. Many people who are in poverty traps one day find they don't have a reliable place to lay their head at night. And that maybe goes on for 2 days, a week, a month. Their car breaks down. They can't go to work anymore. Turns into long-term homelessness. Something that should be temporary. Something that we as a community can address by providing housing for these people. This has been the experience of the working poor in the city of Tampa for a long time. The reason why I'm here today is not because this is a new thing that's never happened before, but because this is happening to a whole new category of people. There's an entire generation of young people who are coming of age right now without even the slightest notion that they would ever be able to afford to buy a house. If you talk to any 24-year-old, maybe an average 24-year-old, they can probably tell you that they're spending at least 70% of their income on a new car they bought out of college maybe, or if they didn't go to college, they need a car. The average ownership cost of a car is like $600 a month or more. And they're probably spending like $1,200 to $1,800 a month in rent. That's a lot of money for somebody who either didn't go to college and is still in their early 20s, or they just graduated. A whole generation of people are coming up with that circumstance, and they don't know how it's going to get better because housing prices keep going up. This is not an accident. This is not something that we didn't see happening. We've talked about the issue with not enough housing for 10 years in this city. We're starting to pay the toll now this last couple of years. This is our housing policy at work, or the failures of our housing policy that have been in place for, in my opinion, decades. So I haven't introduced myself yet. I was already introduced, but I will introduce myself again now. I think it's important, though, that we start this conversation with this context. Because when I talk about ADUs, this is what I think about. My name is Nathan Hagen. I'm a Tampa native. I went to school in West Tampa and East Tampa. I went to Dunbar, Farrell, Middleton. I grew up in North Tampa. I was a Magna kid. I have a lot of varied experiences in this community. I went to school at Florida. I'm a startup person. I do not work in housing. I'm not a developer. This is not my day job. But I am a co-lead of a group called Yimby Tampa. And our mission is in our name. YIMBY stands for Yes in My Backyard. We're a chapter of a group called Yimby Action, which is a 501c4. And our mission is to help people in our communities say yes to more affordable, equitable, and diverse housing options in their community. We believe there's a fundamental change in our culture that we need to have to really address the long-term housing affordability crisis that we're facing now. We believe we need to get to a place of what we call housing abundance. Housing should be abundant. Housing should not be scarce, because housing is a human right. That is what we believe. We believe that a community, that a dense, car-optional, human-scale community is a cornerstone of society that achieves its equity, climate, and quality of life goals. And that's why I'm here to talk about ADUs this morning. So ADUs are a small way that we can address this. And ADUs in the city of Tampa, well, first of all, I'll ask, who here knows what an ADU is? All right, I bet a couple of you came here thinking, I'm going to learn how to build an ADU in my backyard today, and that's really all I want to hear about. And we need you too. But I think it's important to frame this as a housing issue, as a humanitarian issue, because historically when these conversations have happened in the city of Tampa, when I talk to folks who are older than me, who have been at meetings like this, talking about ADUs in the past, typically it's about homeowners in a neighborhood or on a street saying, I would like to help build equity in my home, or get a passive income stream, help pay my mortgage. It really has for a long time been a neighborhood issue, a street by street issue, really, a parcel by parcel issue. And that's why we have not made a ton of progress, because it's difficult to get consensus, and there's not really a lot of urgency around that. We've gotten to a point now where we need to look at this not just as a neighborhood issue, but like I said, this is a humanitarian issue. This is a housing issue. This is a public policy issue. This is a homelessness issue. So, in the city of Tampa today, you can have, there's two types of ADUs. There's a family one that I won't really get into, and if someone wants to ask a question about it, we can talk about that more. But a true ADU in the city of Tampa is only legal to build in two neighborhoods. Old Seminole Heights area, and I think an area north of Lowry Park. You may know about ADUs in other neighborhoods. Chances are they're either not legal, or they're grandfathered in because they maybe existed prior to the ban on ADUs citywide. The limit on the size is 950 square feet, which is reasonable. You should think of an ADU as basically like an apartment in your backyard. It's that simple. An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. Not a super helpful name. There are other names like carriage house, or backyard bungalow, or garage apartment, or not in Florida, but a basement apartment. There's a ton of names for these things. I'm sure you've heard them called 10 different things. Tiny homes sometimes. Mother-in-law suite, yeah, that's the most obvious one. There's a lot of names for these things. But basically, if you have another door on your house for an accessory part of your structure, it's not the main part of your structure, and somebody can live there, we call it an ADU. In the city of Tampa, we don't even have an ADU defined in our zoning code. That's how far behind the ball we are on this. I know city staff are looking at it right now, and I hope they're looking at other things too. So, what other important things are there to know about ADUs right now? I think the biggest thing is that they're limited. You need a special use permit they have to apply for every year to have one. So, in those small neighborhoods, there's a small section of people who have ADUs who have to fill out paperwork every year to continue to have an ADU. It's not really an effective housing solution with how we have it right now. So we knew that ADUs were coming up on city council because staff knows from looking at other places in the state of Florida and in the country, the ADUs can really contribute to addressing housing affordability issues. They don't solve it, but they do provide housing that's more affordable than some of the other housing that's being built right now. And so we started a committee in Yimby Tampa that had two objectives. One is to identify, with some great confidence, what is good ADU policy that the city of Tampa should adopt. So there's a perspective other than city staff. City staff is very competent and awesome, but it's important to have multiple perspectives in a community looking into an issue. And how can we demonstrate and build community support around that? So those are the two missions of our committee. And I'll mostly talk about the first one, which is policy, and I'm very close to wrapping up here, so I'm looking forward to the discussion. It was really easy for us actually to find out what is good ADU policy because there's a lot of places that, first of all, have done it. We are way behind the curve on this. And even just in Florida, there are two groups that have model ordinances that you can just take off the shelf and throw into our code. And I mean, there's a little bit of work that needs to be done to make it work. But they've kind of figured it out. It's a menu of these are the things that you should do if you want to have a serious ADU policy that actually addresses the issue. One of them is from the Florida Housing Coalition, which is a great group. But there's another great group that we ended up working with, and we're partners with on this, which is AARP. So I'm young, and I think about this issue from a perspective of workforce housing and young people's problems. And I'm so glad that we've started partnering with the AARP on this because this is not just a young person's issue. This is a fixed income issue. This is a retirement issue. This is an age in place issue. This is a in-home care issue. There are so many people that are affected by us adopting real, progressive, good ADU policy that actually creates housing in the city of Tampa. And we believe that if we implement a policy like the model ordinance recommended by the AARP, we can create as many as 300 or more accessory dwelling unit homes in the city of Tampa every year. That's less than one large apartment complex, by the way, spread across an entire city. It's not that big a deal. I know some people might disagree with that, and we can have those conversations. But there are two components of the policy that I want to highlight, and then we'll jump into discussion. One is we have to make it very easy for people to do this, and we have to make it very affordable for people to do this. Our recommendations are by right development, no additional parking requirements, up to 2 ADUs and more if they're guaranteed affordable. We have people talk about like little accessory dwelling unit parks or like tiny home parks. We have a couple of projects now actually that are like tiny apartments I know there's one in East Tampa for veterans that's going to be like 8 ADU type structures on a lot. The land use story about how you get that kind of affordable housing in the city of Tampa is very difficult. And having good ADU policy makes that a lot easier. You need to have minimal impact fees. ADUs really don't create much impact on the community in terms of costs, in terms of infrastructure requirements. We should be reasonable in what we charge property owners or homeowners when they build these things. Let's see. There's stuff about owner-occupied. I don't know. There's a lot of good things that we can dive into, and I don't have a list in front of me to list them all off. So I will stop talking now, and I would love to hear questions from the community. What you all think about this?
Excuse me, Ron's got his hand up first.